Hey, Guoba here. 2.3 not only brings new relics, but also brand new planars. The relics were revealed in the latest 2.3 livestream, and for the planars, I'll be showing them from the Creator Experience server. So let's see what they do, who they work for, and how strong they are today. If you enjoyed this video, I do guides on every new relic and planar set, so subscribe for more. And now, let's begin. The new relic domain can be found in Penacony's Grand Theatre. It hosts a break-oriented set and a weird follow-up ultimate-y set. Let's first review the break set, Iron Cavalry against the Scourge. The 2-piece is a 16% break effect buff, just like the Thief and Watchmaker 2-piece bonuses. All is fine and dandy. And the 4-piece has a 2-step process. First, if you hit 150% break effect or higher, you ignore 10% def with your break damage. So that's normal breaks and super breaks. This is a pretty great first buff, considering break damage has little stat-based ways of being buffed, as it won't be buffed by attack percent or damage percent or crit. However, with this alone, it's just a side grade to the Quantum set's free 10% def ignore at all times. And 10% def ignore alone is only a 5.65% increase to damage. So onto the next part. When you hit 250% break effect, the super break damage you deal ignores an additional 15% defense. So breaks will ignore 10% as always, but super breaks will ignore 25% total, beating out the Quantum set even versus Quantum weak. 25% def ignore is equal to a whopping 15.44% increase to your super breaks damage. 250% break effect is also very easy to hit if you are stacking it on everything, and Harmony MC, the super break enabler, gives way more than enough to activate this set. Unlike other conditional sets, this will activate mid-combat even if you enter combat with under 250%. So for non-super break DPS, this is just a side grade to the Thief 4-piece or Genius 4-piece. The extra 16% break effect won't be too far behind 10% def ignore, and you won't have to refarm all these pieces for a tiny upgrade. I found this to be just under a 2% upgrade to 4 Thief for Boothill with his signature. Even at 90% def shred on an enemy, which you won't traditionally get, 10% def ignore only sees an 11.5% damage increase to breaks. On super break DPS, however, this set is balling and should be farmed up. If there are quantum break DPS though, I would just stick to your normal quantum set, as the 20% def ignore would go on breaks, super breaks, and kit based damage, for example on a unit like Shui, who does it all. It also means you need Harmony MC to enable this set, so on Harmony MC super break teams, you can farm this set for your super break carry. If you do run a Harmony MC composition with Boothill, this is his new best in slot, and by a fair margin. The only time it isn't is versus Quantum Weak with the Genius set, which is niche. If you run something like Bronya Raw May or Bronya Pella, then this set is just a side grade to the Genius set, even versus non-Quantum Weak, and a tad weaker versus Quantum Weak. This is because if you're only doing break damage, you're getting 10% def ignore with either set. So it's between 16% break effect or 10% def ignore on your alt and enhanced basic damage, where Genius set comes out ahead. Unfortunately, they didn't make this set more universal for non-super break DPS. And as for supports that do super break damage like Harmony MC themselves and, for example, Gallagher, giving both of them the new set resulted in a 4.7% DPS increase to my Firefly team simulation. Raw May wearing Watchmaker of course here. But you'd have to farm 3 whole sets, and you might prefer the 2 Hacker Space effect on Gallagher and the 4 Watchmaker on Harmony MC instead of Raw May due to their sometimes boosted rotation ultimates. Now the other set, the Soaring Valorous, is a bit depressing, at least for now. It definitely looks to cater to a future unit rather than a current unit. Now the saving grace is that the 2-piece is a 12% attack buff, and we know cracked pieces are more valuable than bad full set pieces. So for people farming the break set, rejoice, you have a usable 2-piece. Regardless, let's see the 4-piece and why it just doesn't work for us just yet. So you first get a juicy 6% crit rate, which lures you in. I mean, attack percent and crit rate, surely this is the new godly relic set. But then it hits you with a weird condition pretty much no one wants or fulfills. When the wearer uses a follow-up attack, increase the damage dealt by their ultimate by 36% for 1 turn. Let's ask our resident ultimate nukers their thoughts. Oh, Akron and Argenti don't have a follow-up apparently. So let's go through the list of follow-up units in the game. Clara does a ton, but she doesn't deal damage with her ultimate. Ratio spams them out and they hit hard, and he does damage with his ultimate, but his damage split is nowhere near favoring his ult damage, and Pioneer or Wastelander are much better fits. Topaz is our highest frequency attacker, but she doesn't deal damage with her ultimate. Herta actually deals damage with both a lot, but she'd rather use 4 Juke in Pure Fiction or something cheesy like 4 Wind or 4 Thief. Kafka has a follow-up attack, but that's Kafka, a dot unit. March 7th can't use the attack percent, and on a DPS build would probably run something else. Shui does a great ultimate nuke and has follow-ups, but she has the Quantum set for Hybrid and Iron Cavalry for Break and Super Break. Now Yanqing could unironically use this, as he can use all of these stats, and his ultimate is around 40% of his damage profile. So I found some calculations from like a year ago and implemented this new set, and over the Ice 4-piece it came to be about a 2 to 3% increase in average damage. These were solo calcs. Anyway, probably not worth the refarm. Jing Yuan prefers Duke or Lightning, Aventurine prefers Pioneer for damage or Knight for sustaining, Blade has Longevous, Himeko has Duke, Qingchui has Quantum, Bronya is a support and wouldn't run this even if you did get her to E4. And of course, Jade is coming out this patch and has a follow-up and does damage with her ultimate. However, multipliers aren't known, and it seems her kit is based more on the follow-ups and their enhanced versions. And she is Quantum, so she has access to 2 of the best sets in the game already, Quantum and Duke sets. So maybe Yanqing, and otherwise it's a 2-piece only set. Now we also receive 2 brand new planar sets in 2.3, Forge of the Kalpagni Lantern and Duran Dynasty of Running Wolves. The Forge planar set is pretty interesting. At first you see it's obviously designed for Firefly's release, but we can make use of it on many characters. So we get a 6% speed buff, which is based on the unit's base speed, as well as a 40% break effect buff for 1 turn when hitting enemies with fire weakness. The 6% speed is pretty useful to have if you're a speed tuning gamer, and if this speed amounts to something great. Remember that support speed breakpoints aren't always going to magically save or improve your runs, and also remember you're losing out on team-wide buffs from Keel or energy gains from something like Bonwak or Penacony. For example, getting Pella to 160 speed sounds cool, but what is that doing for you? He gets an extra turn for the 1 cycle breakpoint, but is her being there going to clear the wave at that breakpoint? If you're running Resolution versus 158.4 speed enemies, your Ensnare debuff will wear off too, unless you save your ultimate. On Ting Yun, for example, speed is cool, but you could lose out on a guaranteed 3-turn rotation when losing Penacony or Bonwak's energy percent. So I think non-fire break units can make use of the speed, just be smart about it and don't ruin your setup. I think Mr. Pokey will love this planar set, so he can work towards something like a 200 speed Sparkle and Bronya. As for the break-oriented part about the Forge set, any fire break DPS can run it. If you're a break DPS that's going versus fire weakness and your own weakness, that works too, kinda like the Quantum set does for the Def Ignore. Though niche, it's still a thing if you have pieces lying around. So Firefly, break Guanaifen, break Himeko, and super break variants of Himeko, Topaz, Asta, Gallagher, which I've all seen, could all run this. And maybe Hook. Do people run her super break these days? Maybe in the latest MOC? Do note though on crit units that can opt into super break, they usually build their normal crit build and instead use Raw Mate and Harmony MC to boost their break damage with the massive break effect buffs. So for Hook, Himeko, Topaz, I reckon you just run your standard crit build and ignore this set. For Firefly teams specifically, she implants Fire Weakness, which can help this set out versus non-Fire Weak content, whilst enabling the buff for break supports. But if you are Fire Break DPS, you're running versus Fire Weak anyway, so in general, this 2-piece can be used for your supportive units. It's an extra break effect buff on top of Talia, on top of some additional speed. This can be Harmony MC and Gallagher, for example, running this. And in these cases, the speed can be useful for ensuring they take the first turn over a super fast unit like Firefly. And finally, Duran, which I always read as Durian, Dynasty of Running Wolves, is our other planar set. It is also follow-up based, but this time it's actually useful on current units. You get a stacking follow-up damage percent boost when allies use follow-up attacks, 5% per stack up to 25%. You then get a 25% crit damage buff to all attacks at 5 stacks. We'll be looking at my creator experience footage just to see how it works. So as we can see, it buffs the follow-up before it does its damage. We can see this by comparing a weak Topaz's non-crit damage before and after unequipping the 2-piece, but also keeping the same stats. As we see in the bottom two, it does not matter if the wearer does a follow-up, the word allies includes you too. So compared to Inner Salsato, we get a 25% crit value boost instead of 16%, and we get a 25% follow-up damage buff rather than a 15% follow-up and ultimate damage buff. Compared to Izumo, we get a 25% crit value boost instead of 24%, and a follow-up buff rather than an attack percent. Now imagine farming Inert, then farming Izumo, and then seeing this set drop. Because in fact for both Ratio and Topaz, in a Ratio Topaz team, this set is their new best in the slots. However, there is a saving grace for Izumo. Crit rate is more annoying to get than crit damage, and we have less buffs for it. And there's nothing worse than missing a critical hit. It's only a few percent behind, and you don't need to refarm every time a new planar drops just for those percent. For other follow-up comps like Herta or Himeko ones, and Jade should be considered here too, this will be their best or second best in the slot. Because remember, in Pure Fiction, we have Sigonia already, which is massive. So if you farmed Sigonia, you're safe, but if you haven't, you can farm this set instead if you prefer the other planar with it. It's kind of funny that this set contests both Sigonia and Izumo sets in one for follow-up units. So I hope that video helped enlighten you on how the new sets work and who can use them. And if it did, maybe consider liking and subscribing. Let me know too what you think of them down below. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, thanks for watching, and have a good day.